Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The land of Eris had known peace for centuries, but peace had always been fragile. In a world where 5 ancient races coexisted in a delicate balance, humans, elves, dwarves, orcs, and the elusive dragon kind had always kept their distance, each guarding their own territory. Yet the growing signs of chaos couldn't be ignored any longer. Dark clouds churned across the skies, rivers dried up, and whispers of terror spread from village to village. All the omens pointed to one undeniable truth: Soraka, the Dark Lord, had returned. Erin crouched in the tall grass, her hands steady on the bowstring, eyes focused on her target. A stag grazed peacefully in the clearing, oblivious to the danger lurking in the wood. Her breath slow as she aimed, her long elven ears twitching at the faint sounds of the forest. But something was wrong. The wind shifted, carrying with it a sickly scent, like rot in the earth. The animal sensed it too. The stag had snapped up, its nostrils flaring. In an instant, the peaceful clearing erupted into chaos. Birds took flight, and the stag bolted deeper into the forest. Erin stayed low, scanning the tree line. The sickness in the air didn't belong to the natural world. Her village had already seen signs of this corruption. Just last week, the elders had spoken of the crops failing, of the nearby stream running dry. And now here was the presence of something unnatural, something evil. Before Erin could investigate further, a deep rumble rolled through the earth, as if the very bones of the land were shuddering in fear. She looked toward the mountains in the distance where dark clouds gathered. Her heart sank. Soraka? She had heard the stories as a child, tales of a time when the Dark Lord had risen from the shadows to claim dominion over Azeroth. But those were just stories, passed down to keep the young ones in line, or so she had thought. Now, seeing the darkness spread across the sky, she knew the truth. The world was in danger, and they had to act. Erin hurried back to her village, her thoughts racing. She had to speak to the elders, tell them what she had seen. As she reached the outskirts of the settlement, the familiar sounds of everyday life greeted her: children playing, women tending to their gardens, the rhythmic pounding of a blacksmith's hammer. But it all felt hollow now, as if these small acts of life couldn't stand against the storm that was coming. The elders gathered in the heart of the village, their faces grave. As she approached, they already knew. "The omens are clear," said Elder Fela, her voice heavy with age and wisdom. "Soraka has returned." Murmurs of fear rippled through the gathered elves. Erin's father, a proud hunter, stepped forward. "Then we must prepare, gather our warriors, fortify the village." But Elder Fela shook her head. "It is not enough. Soraka cannot be defeated by arrows and swords. We need the power of the ancient." "The heart of the dragon," Erin whispered, the words escaping her lips. Before she realized, she had spoken aloud. The elders turned her eyes wide. "You know of it," Fela asked. Erin nodded slowly. "My mother told me the stories. It said that the heart holds the power to defeat even the greatest evil." Fela's expression softened. "Your mother was wise. The heart of the dragon is our only hope, but it has been lost for centuries." "But it exists," Erin pressed, stepping forward. "If it's our only chance, we must find it." A heavy silence followed her words, and for a moment Erin wondered if she had overstepped her place. But then Falula spoke again. "You are a brave young one," she said, "and perhaps you are right. But the journey will be perilous. The path to the Dragon's Peak is fraught with danger, and the trials to claim the heart are even more deadly." Erin straightened, her resolve hardening. "I will go." The following morning, Erin set out on her journey, armed with her bow, a quiver of arrows, and a map hastily drawn by the elder. She knew the path would be long, but she had no choice. The fate of Aelaris hung in the balance. She traveled alone for days, skirting through the forests and valleys that she had known since childhood. But as the land grew darker and the signs of corruption became more apparent, she found herself longing for company, for a voice to break the oppressive silence. That voice came in the form of a gruff, bearded dwarf named Duin. Erin met Duin on the 3rd week of her journey, deep in the heart of the mountainous region that bordered her homeland. She had been tracking a group of orcas when she stumbled upon him, battling the creatures with a fury that took her by surprise. His axe swung with precision and power, cleaving through the orcas' ranks with ease. She watched from the shadows, impressed by his skill but wary of his intention. Dwarves were not known for their kindness toward elves, and she had no desire to get caught in the crossfire. But as the last orcs fell to the ground, Duin turned, his sharp eyes locking onto her hiding spot. "You gonna stand there watching, or are you gonna help?" Arian stepped out of the trees, her bow lowered but ready. "I didn't think you needed help." Duin snorted, wiping the blood from his axe. "And you do be right, but it doesn't hurt to ask." They regarded each other for a long moment. Two strangers from different worlds, both caught in the storm of Soraka, their return. Finally, Duin broke the silence. "Namesense Duin," he said, extending a hand. "I take it. You are not just wandering these mountains for fun." Aaron hesitated before taking his hand. "Aaron, I am searching for the heart of the dragon." Duin raised an eyebrow. "The heart, eh? Now that's Albe legend. I haven't heard in a long time." Duin studied her for a moment, then grunted. "Well, looks like we've got the same goal. Soraka's forces overran my people's minds. We dwarves don't take kindly to being driven from our home." Arian nodded. "Then we all travel together, but let's be clear, this is no ordinary journey. The path to the heart is dangerous, and the trials will test us both." Duin grinned, his eyes glinting with excitement. "Sounds like fun." Their journey together was anything but fun. The mountains were treacherous, the air cold and thin, and the ever-present sense of dread hung over them like a shadow. Yet despite their differences, Iron and Duin found an unexpected camaraderie. Duin's gruff humor and battle-hardened skills balanced Iron's sharp instincts and agility. They fought side by side against the creatures that roamed the corrupted land, and as they ventured deeper into the mountains, they began to understand the true nature of the heart, sound and power. It wasn't just a weapon, but something far greater, a source of magic that could change the fate of the world. But that power came at a cost. The cursed forest was their first real test. The trees were twisted, gnarled things, their bark blackened by an ancient curse that had plagued the land for generations. As Arian and Duin entered the forest, a deep chill settled over them, and the air grew thick with the scent of decay. "We shouldn't be here," Duin muttered, his hand tightening around the hilt of his axe. Arian nodded in agreement, but pressed forward. The map the elders had given her showed the forest as the only way to reach Dragon, said Peak. There was no turning back. But as they ventured deeper into the cursed woods, they quickly realized they weren't alone. The shadows shifted and moved, whispering their darkest fears into their ears. The whispers in the cursed forest were relentless, growing louder with every step Arian and Duin took. Arian Allen has sharp eyes, scanned the shadows, but the source of the voices remained elusive. The trees loomed over them like silent sentinels, their branches twisting in unnatural shape. Every now and then, she caught fleeting movements out of the corner of her eye, but when she turned to look, there was nothing. The air felt thick, like they were walking through a haze of something far more dangerous than fog. Duin's breathing had grown heavier, his face set in a grim expression. His hand gripped the handle of his axe, as if it were a lifeline. "This place is cursed beyond belief," he muttered, his voice low, wary of alerting whatever might be watching. Erin couldn't disagree. The weight of the forest was pressing down on her too, tugging at her heart, dredging up memories she had tried to bury. She could almost hear her mother's sound voice calling to her from the shadows, but she knew it was impossible. Her mother was gone, taken by a wasting sickness years ago, yet the sound was so real, so close. "Eric," she snapped back to reality at the sound of Duin's voice. His eyes, normally full of grit and fire, were distant, unfocused. "Do you hear it?" Shay asked, his voice barely a whisper. Erin felt a chill run down her spine. The cursed forest was playing tricks on them, but she had to stay grounded. "It's not real," she said firmly, stepping closer to him. "Sorry, whatever it is, whatever you were hearing, it's also a trick. The curse is trying to pull us apart." Duin shook his head, his brow furrowing as if he were struggling to concentrate. "Hey, it's my family. I can hear that." "It's not your family," Arian said, her voice stronger. "Now you remember why don't we reheat. We need to stay focused. We're close to the dragon and Peak. Don't let this place get to you." But the forest had its claws in both of them, and no matter how hard Ardan tried to shake the feeling, the voices wouldn't. "Try stop." Her mother self's voice kept calling, growing more desperate, more urgent. She could see flashes of her face in the shadows, pale and sick, just as she had looked before she passed. It was like the forest knew exactly what to show her to weaken her resolve. Erin forced herself to move, pulling Dune with her. Tara, come on, Tara, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. We have to keep going. They trudged forward, the whispers clawing at their minds until they came upon a clearing in the forest. At the center of the clearing stood a large stone altar covered in ancient run. The ground around it was blackened as if something had burned the very life out of it long ago. This must be one of the trials, Dune said, his voice still strained. He hadn't fully shaken off the effects of the forest, but he was starting to regain control. Arian approached the altar cautiously, her eyes scanning the run. They were written in an old, forgotten language, but something about them felt familiar. She ran her fingers over the symbols, feeling a faint pulse of magic in the stone. It's testing us, she said softly. The chorus is testing our will. Dune frowned, looking around at the oppressive trees, terrored by messing with our heads, by forcing us to face our fears. Arian replied, Esteray, it's trying to break us before we can reach the heart. Dune scoffed, though there was a hardness in his eyes. So well, it'll have to try harder than that. Erin couldn't help but smile at his determination. Together, they stood at the altar, side by side, facing whatever came next. The wind picked up, swirling around them, carrying the whispers of the forest. But now, instead of pulling them apart, it felt as if the air itself was trying to push them forward, urging them to prove their strength. With a sudden burst of light, the runes on the altar flared to life. The stone cracked, revealing a hidden staircase leading down into the earth. Erin and Dune exchanged a glance. Arshiyin said, as she read, Zaiwei. Dune nodded, his grip on his axe tightening, carrying no turning back now. They descended the staircase into the darkness below, the air growing colder with each step. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber, its walls lined with crystals that gave off a faint, eerie glow. In the center of the chamber stood a massive stone door, intricately carved with the image of a dragon in flight. The heart of the dragon lay beyond that door, Arian was sure of it, but there was no obvious way to open it. No lock, no handle, just the image of the dragon, watching over them with cold, unblinking eye. It says another trial, Dune muttered, stepping up to examine the door. Erin nodded, her mind racing. She knew there had to be a way to unlock the door, but what kind of test were they facing now? The curse of forest had tested their willpower, their ability to resist temptation. What would this trial demand? As she studied the carvings on the door, her eyes were drawn to the dragon's heart. There, embedded in the stone, was a small indentation, perfectly shaped to hold something. A key, she said, quietly. We need a key to open it. Dune cursed under his breath. And where are we supposed to find that? Before Arian could answer, the ground beneath them rumbled. Cracks began to form in the floor, and from those cracks emerged creatures made of shadow and stone gowns, animated by dark magic. Their eyes glowed with a malevolent light as they lumbered toward Arian and Dune. No time to think. Erin said, drawing her bow. Tara, fight. Dune was already charging toward the nearest golem, his axe gleaming in the faint light. He struck with all his strength, but the golem barely flinched. Its stone body absorbed the blow, and it retaliated with a powerful swipe of its arm, knocking Dune back. Erin loosed arrow after arrow, aiming for the joints where the golem's stone bodies moved. Her arrows found their marks, but the creatures kept coming, relentless in their pursuit. We need to find that key, Dune shouted, ducking under another heavy blow. Arian's sense mind raced. She scanned the chamber, looking for anything that might give them a clue. The crystals lining the walls pulsed with a strange rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Her eyes widened as realization struck. It sewed the crystals. She yelled to Dune, that reconnected to the door. Dune didn't need to be told twice. He swung his axe with renewed purpose, aiming for the crystals now. As his axe connected, the crystal shattered, and the golem nearest to him crumbled to dust. Arian followed his lead, shooting at the crystals one by one. Each time a crystal was destroyed, the corresponding golem fell. But the crystals were spread far apart, and the golems were closing in fast. She ran toward the far end of the chamber, aiming for a cluster of crystal. Her heart pounded in her chest as she fired arrow after arrow, but it wasn't high enough. The golems were too fast. Just as one of the golems reached her, its stone hand raised to strike, Dune appeared out of nowhere, his axe swinging with brutal force. He smashed through the golem's arm, then the crystal behind it, sending both crumbling to the ground. Don't think that I'm gonna let you have all the fun, Shira, he grunted, offering her a quick grin. Together they destroyed the last of the crystals. As the final shard shattered, the stone door groaned and slowly creaked open, revealing the chamber beyond. A soft golden light spilled out, filling the air with a warmth that cut through the oppressive chill of the cursed forest. They had found at the heart of the dragon. But as they stepped into the chamber, they knew that their journey was far from over.